silence of all time.
Thank you, everyone. I'm Kelly Fasane, and these are Turnstile. I gotta be honest with you, if it was up to me, I wouldn't be up here right now. And instead that screen would slowly come down and there'd be instruments set up. You guys would play a 6-set, people would be going off the stage. Apparently that's not really feasible in this venue, so we'll have to wait a few hours until Brooklyn for that. And so instead of doing that, they've agreed to talk a little bit about what we just saw. Congratulations. In the world of hip hop, it's kind of a cliche to say it's going to be a movie. But when did you first realize that this new album was also going to be a movie?
I don't know if there was an exact moment, but I'll say that a lot of people in this room are responsible for kind of pushing it that direction. On the last album, we did a little like short kind of 4-song thing, and I remember, we always talked about like we don't want to do a music video if it's just to have a visual. We want to do it if it's something that kind of does something that you want the music to do, but just push it further. And I remember talking to Ian Hurdle, the DP, on the phone years ago, and kind of told him, all right, we want to do this, and we want to do this, and we want to do this here, and then this song goes to this, and this whole thing, and who should we get to direct? And I was like, laid it all out. I was like, who should we get to direct it? And he was like, well, I mean, that's the idea. The direction is there. You guys can just do it. Then I'll help figure it out. And that was, I think, just a huge moment for us as a band, because I think that's kind of something that's been happening since we've been a band, where it's like we're kind of just figuring out how to kind of just do things like that, and realizing over time that there's people and there's ways to do things, and I have no experience doing anything like this, and we have no kind of business being here, it feels like, but it's like figuring out was the only mission, and we have such amazing people around us that help figure us out, and including the band and our family and everyone that helps film it and edit it. And they kind of, I think, with this album, it just, when you're making music, you have these kind of colors and visuals that come into your head that kind of sometimes can just stay there, and this one we wanted them to kind of come with the music, and that was the thing we wanted to lead with this album.
I mean, in that sense, it's literally DIY, right? Like the idea is, we can do this ourselves. And it's also, at times it feels kind of like a tutorial, in the sense of you have a lot of new listeners discovering the band, and they can watch this and be like, first of all, this is how you dance at a Turnstile show. But also, this is our vibe, this is our community, this is our spirit. Was that part of the idea?
Yeah, I mean, you look at a couple of these videos and you see a similar setting with that stage on the field, and that's although it's something that we don't see normally, you don't have to tell people what to do when you get there, because it's like, do what you normally do, and it's a very natural setting. And a lot of this film is, it kind of is just us talking about and showing and expressing things that we love already. And a lot of the visuals, they come from a place to express what you're feeling from the music and what we're feeling from it. But a lot of it ties into those things that are intangibles, like, where you grow up, how does that inform what the music is or what the visual is, and being able to do a video that's just all Baltimore City, and a video that's just only people that would come to a Turnstile show, and no one that you go, okay, so when you get to the edge of the stage, you turn and roll. So you don't have to do any of that, because it's a natural thing that's kind of built into us,
Daniel, I've got to say, I was stressing out a little bit You were losing your pedal. It's slipping away from your foot. We've got the close-up. I mean, it seems like one of the things that we get from this film is the physicality of you playing the drums and what that's like, and we see that being linked to dancing and things. Was that important to show that?
Yeah, absolutely. Kind of just to build off what Brendan and Pat said already, it's just like an extension of what the music is for us. I think all of us kind of listen rhythm first sometimes when it comes to music, and building the songs, the groove is a really essential part of every song. Things kind of like branch out from there. So similarly with the film, yeah, just like expressing this physicality, this motion, especially when it's like the acoustic instrument in the room. It's really important. And the hi-hat in particular, like, we talked a lot about that. That was like a nice little tool, because every drummer knows sometimes things run away from you when you're playing drums. The kick drum, the hi-hat pedal, you don't really have the ability to chase them. And I don't know, sometimes you have stress dreams about things running away from you, not being able to chase them and not being able to keep up. So you can take what you want from that scene, but there's some history there.
Franz, there's this moment at the very beginning, and you're in the crosswalk, kind of trying to play your bass, and people are trying to cross the street. And it has that feeling that you sometimes get at a Turnstile show, where there's this like tornado going on, and the band is in the middle of the tornado trying to play. Did you know how that scene was going to play out when you had the concept for it?
Well, first off, shout out to the two guys with the concept and everybody that helped execute it. Nah, I mean, that's just my vibe for real. Like, that's where I'm chilling. Like, we played the other day in Detroit, and it kind of just like that. Like, grab the guitar and get in the middle of the street. Everybody else is at the show too, walking around. So, I don't know. It kind of just felt like very, very us.
Is it difficult to do the opposite? Is it difficult in the studio where you don't have all those people to feed off of, and you don't have that energy, and you're just standing still trying to play the bass line?
I mean, that's super interesting, but no, because all of these other people ensure that what is taken to tape from recording is the most spectacular thing. It might not be as like insane looking as a show where everybody's running around, or me in the middle of the intersection, but like it might be a guitar sound that's so striking and so captivating that for a measure you like are completely just like, I'm just in love with this song. I'm in love with the sound, like what is going down. Like they always ensure that what is happening on tape and the recording in the studio is a very most exciting feeling thing at that very moment.
Meg, I've got to ask you, you start playing shows with Turnstile, and then you're like, oh, then you're in the band, and you're going to make an album. You probably had some ideas about what it might be like to make a Turnstile album. How did this process compare to whatever you might have imagined?
I think just being a part of this group for like, I'm playing shows for the last, I think, 2 years now. And kind of over time, when you're playing with 4 other people, it's like a symbiotic thing happens where you'll kind of get on the same wavelength, and seeing like the genesis of this record come together and all of the visual elements of it, and getting to be a part of that in some way has just been the coolest thing. Yeah.
Was it, when you heard, or when you guys were talking about the concept for the film, was there anything that you wanted to make sure that the film showed?
Not necessarily, but I think there was a lot of room within all of the concepts that were being realized for interpretation. Like, for example, the light design video, we were all given kind of like the brief that we all had these different light fixtures, and it was just to interpret movement around that in our own way. And so I kind of went away and spent some time thinking about how to interpret that and what maybe I wanted to convey and what that meant, and it kind of made it into this like bigger metaphor for what it felt like to play and be a part of it.
How do you feel when you're playing on stage? Do you like more stuff happening on stage? Do you like a little space to do your work? Like, what's the ideal situation for you when you're playing a show?
I think as much chaos as possible is the best possible scenario.
So
And-
people can remember that when they're under the bridge tonight. They're like, well, Meg said as much chaos
Yeah.
as possible, so.
Yeah, but in a fun and respectful way where everyone's looking after each other.
Of course.
But just having that energy to feed off and like feeling like the crowd is on stage with you, and there's the boundary between being on stage and being the audience is completely dissolved.
Brendan, we first talked, I looked it up, it was 10 years ago, when Non-Stop Feeling had just come out. And we were talking about this band that more and more people were starting to really love. And we were talking about like the history of hardcore bands that came before. And you were you told me that one of your gateway bands was Madball. And you said, and you remembered that feeling of hearing Madball for the first time and feeling like, yo, what is this? It sounds scary. You also talked about going to Baltimore to shows and being a little nervous at first to go to these hardcore shows in Baltimore, and you used the same word, scary. And I think for a lot of people, including myself, part of the appeal of hardcore is that it's a little scary. My first hardcore show, I'll age myself a little bit here. My first hardcore show was 1991, Fugazi at the Channel in South Boston. St. Patty's Day, skinheads everywhere, and it was scary. How do you think about scariness now in the context of this band and this world? Is that an important feeling for people to have if they go see Turnstile? Do you want it to be a little scary?
Yeah, I guess the scariness has evolved over time, and I think first going to shows, first hearing this music without any context, when you're a kid and you hear someone screaming at you in your headphones and like these distorted guitars and just kind of like this whirlwind of sounds, and it's like it's scary, but I think it's because it's intense and you don't know what it is. And I think growing up and then eventually going to shows, meeting people, building context for what these bands are and like what this, the history of where things are coming from and making sense of it, it makes it less scary, but it makes it more exciting, because it's like, I think the scariness is really just intensity, and it's such a, finding music that's like the most expressive and physical and intense and really like can just be something where you can fully give all of yourself in a room. I think is what, first going to shows, it's scary because people are swinging their fists and people are like throwing you up against a brick wall and, like breaking bottles and all this kind of stuff. But I think there's such a beauty in sticking around there and seeing why this is happening and figuring out why is this so necessary to be in this room? Why does this feel so good, and why is this so important for so many people? And kind of finding that common ground. And I think what's beautiful about it is that everyone can be there for maybe different things, but there's like a shared collective energy, and people can be there for whatever they need to be there for, and like whatever they need to kind of express or kind of get off their mind, and just kind of, I think it's that scariness is something that ended up becoming this thing that kind of nurtured our ability to kind of be comfortable in our own skin, and just we're still figuring things out, but.
Well, that's what makes your music and this record so much fun to listen to, is the sense of like, that we're listening to a band that is figuring things out and maybe going into the studio without a preconceived idea of what it's going to be, and we're going to go on this journey with you. At the same time, it's still connected to the world that you came from. Was it important to you? Like when you go in the studio, are you like, no, we're going to have some riffs, there's going to be some fast parts, no matter how much we're exploring, we're still going to have that connection?
Yeah, I think it's just like, I think there's just like this kind of dropping of all like criteria to be met, and really just like, I think all that stuff will naturally be in there because that's just what the intangible DNA of the band is. And I think that DNA is always kind of just like shifting a bit. It's just really important for us to always make sure that that's really whatever the DNA of this form of the band in this moment is always reflected in an album that we make, and it'll always be different than the next one because we'll be, you know, in different places of our life, but that DNA will always kind of exist in there, and DNA doesn't go away. It just kind of you add with your life experience and everything like that. So.
And it also goes in surprising places. I mean, Daniel, when you're recording Dreaming, were you thinking about reggaeton?
Maybe not reggaeton specifically, but that kind of rhythm is something that, like Brendan was saying, it's kind of just like in our DNA at some point. I mean, years and years ago, Brendan and I were just jamming in his parents' basement for hours and hours, and it's something we do all the time. And it's just one of those rhythms, one of those feels that's made its way into, I think, just like the makeup, the essence of Turnstile. And then things kind of just build from there. But it's like, it's a really nice foundation to have this like, this feel, this groove, and this like, this movement to a song. And yeah, it's something that you can just paint over afterwards. And yeah, like we've had something on the last record, Glow On, with like a similarly like reggaeton vibe to it. And I think this is like a nice evolution where it's like maybe a little bit more aggressive, but also a little bit more static, which I think allows melody to kind of like shine in a different way. I love it.
What about the tension between wanting people to like your music, but also wanting to make sure that you're not just making music to try to please people? I mean, do you get nervous when you have a record like this and people are about to go see the shows? Tomorrow everyone gets to hear the album, and is there some part of you that's waiting to see like what's the response going to be? Or do you totally put that out of your head?
Yeah, I think it's something that exists, but I think, you know, it's kind of something that maybe making music is kind of like, I feel we've had a sense of kind of, you know, I think when you're making music, you exist in a space of what's really exciting me, what feels good. You kind of stay in that bubble because that's like the important bubble to live in, and what's tapping into that feels like different and new. And then kind of when it's finished, you definitely, before a record comes out, you're like, no one's gonna like this, I don't think. But I think that that's happened with every single record that we've ever done, and it's like, I just don't think, you know, like at the end of the day, I think it's really important for us to make sure that that is something that's not factored in. And obviously it's something that exists, but I think what's factored into the songs are kind of just really what feels at the essence of that moment, that time and place in which we're making music, and that's what we want to lead the way with anything we do.
You guys have been flying around the country playing these shows. Have any of the responses surprised you or been better or different than you expected so far to the new songs?
I wouldn't say the reaction is surprising ever, but it's kind of one of those things where we don't have the exchange yet until you play the show. You don't have the exchange to see what a person experiencing the music makes you feel back. And it's funny, like when we did one of the videos, we have to play the music for the crowd, and they're hearing these songs for the first time. I'm like, oh, I can't watch anybody. And it might be natural where you want to get up and stage dive or do something, but it's always slightly reassuring because, like Brendan said and a couple people, it's the main agenda is to excite ourselves, and when you can share that, there's a new feeling that you get by seeing a person equally as excited as you. And it's funny, I was sitting right behind these guys right here, and I kept seeing this my man right to the second to the last in the end, and he would react, and I'm like, oh, thank God, yes, he reacted the way I wanted that part to feel like, you know? And it's a strange thing to present a visual with songs that you haven't heard because it makes this bigger thing. But yeah, all the shows so far have been a new experience with them too, because we haven't had the exchange.
So you're saying it's kind of a relief to watch this with these nice people here, and everyone, as far as I could tell, everyone seemed to really dig it.
Yeah.
I think traditionally, especially in the world of hardcore, if there's a band and they have like a new record, there's a new video, and the video starts with the lead singer on a jet ski, traditionally, that has not been a great sign, but this was awesome. So thank you so much for this. I can't wait for the show tonight, and thanks to everyone for coming out.
Yeah.
Turnstile.